Today we're talking about how to start an LLC in Florida, and what we're going to be doing is working through this checklist that you can see on the screen here. I'm casting it from my computer, and we're going to be talking about things such as how to avoid the LLC dumpster fire. This is really important because a lot of times people get LLCs set up, but they don't understand fully what they do, and they also don't understand things such as terms as like piercing the corporate veil, registered agents, commingling funds, pass-through taxation, or how LLC renewals actually work. If any of those terms are unfamiliar to you, we're going to explain them throughout this video series. And yes, it is a series because in this video, we're going to talk about the checklist of getting your LLC set up. But in the next video, we're going to talk about how you can figure out down to the dollar how much it's going to cost you to own that LLC for 5 years. And then we're going to go through like, is it the right decision to use the state website or an online legal tool? Or maybe you should talk to a business attorney based on your situation. All this we're going to cover throughout this video. To get things started, the most important thing is really understanding exactly what your LLC does for you, because sometimes people get a little bit confused on this. What it does is it helps to limit your liability. It's a limited liability company, and it also offers pass-through taxation. I mentioned that because a lot of times people think there's like a tax benefit like owning an LLC. People get a little bit mixed up on that. We're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, let's talk about this right here. Owning a coffee shop without an LLC. What does that look like? Well, when you own the coffee shop, maybe you're just doing it as a sole proprietor. What ends up happening is everything is connected to the business owner. So on the left side, you have your personal home, car, and bank account. And on the right side, you have your business bank account, the cafe itself, the espresso machines, the lights, the point of sale register, all of that is connected to the business owner. And this is not a good setup because if you were sued, right, they can come after all of these assets. They're all connected to you. Now, the difference between owning that and owning an LLC that owns the coffee shop is you now have this red division between the two. On the left side, you have your personal assets. On the right side, you have your business assets. Let's say, unfortunately, somebody is hurt at the coffee shop and they try to sue you. What ends up happening is this red line in the middle is something called the corporate veil. And when they try to sue you, they can only come after your business assets if everything is set up correctly. Now, what the attorney is going to try to do is something called piercing the corporate veil. That's where they try to find a crack in your LLC and say, hey, you didn't do this correctly, or you didn't set that up correctly, or you're not maintaining your LLC. So they can erase that division and then again, come after not only your business assets, but your personal assets as well. So really important that you understand what that term means because it's so important for making sure your LLC is doing what it's supposed to do for you, which is limit your liability. Quickly, I want to talk about an explanation of pass-through taxation. Sometimes people will say like, oh, an LLC will help you save on taxes. Well, not really. There are ways that you can in the future have it do that for you by changing the designation of your LLC. Well, let's say you didn't set up an LLC and you're just like a sole proprietor. You can still have business expenses and deduct that out of your income, right? So let's say in this case, the Acme Coffee LLC grossed $140,000 but had $90,000 of expenses. You have $50,000 of net income. What happens with that is it flows through to your personal tax return. The IRS is taxing the individual, right? They're not taxing the entity, the LLC, they're taxing you. And that income, the net income from the business is flowing through to your personal tax returns. So I just wanted you to understand what that is because that's going to come up at tax time when it comes to owning your LLC. As I mentioned, this is a video series. In the bonuses section, we are going to talk about future tax savings. But there's also some cool stuff here as well in the bonus section. And as I mentioned, you can have this Notion doc for free. There's a link in the description below. But let's say it's like how to start an LLC in Florida. You can ask it this and it's going to give you information tailored to you that's going to be up to date. The other thing is like you're not familiar with like an EIN, you just click this button and then this is going to explain what an EIN is and how to register for one. So when we're looking at 2024 and beyond, it's good to use these modern tools to help you get set up. And one of the first things we're going to talk about in this checklist is going to get into that as well. So I'm going to skip this second one right here, but it's deciding on a business name for your LLC. This is pretty cool because what you can do is if you don't have a name yet, you can go to something like ChatGPT and say like, I'm starting a coffee shop and I want people to feel unique here or something like that, right? What it can do is it can spit out a bunch of name suggestions for you. And then you're going to be able to do search to see if that name is potentially available in your state. But what I like to do for these tools such as ChatGPT is I like to just use them for brainstorming. Like, how can I figure out a good name that fits the emotion that I want people to feel with this business? But one thing I'll say is the name of your LLC isn't super important. That's because a lot of times the name that people see, the brand name, it could be a DBA, doing business as, or fictitious name that lives underneath your LLC. So again, you may have like Acme Coffee LLC, but then you can actually make your DBA, your business name, something different that people see in the public. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself for having that dialed in right away. I want to quickly, though, talk about state sites, LLC Services, and attorney. Now, you can go through the Florida website to set up your LLC. One of the benefits of that is there's not a lot of upsells, but there's also not a lot of services either. They're not going to help you with things on the local level or the federal level. It's just the state level. There's also a ton of online LLC services, and there's a bunch to choose from, and they can make a lot of sense depending on your situation, but other times you may want to go to a business attorney. Business attorney could be if you have a more complex business model, or maybe you have employees or offices in and out of state. Those may be reasons you want to go with that route. But all of that we're going to get to in video 2, the different options for LLC formation. We're going to really deep dive in that in the next video of this series, but I just wanted to kind of give a 30,000 foot view of that. Once you have your LLC name, what you want to do is search availability of your name. So we have this state directory resource here. And all this is doing is pointing to your state. So you can open up Florida, and then what you can see here is you have your entity name. So let's just throw in something crazy. You're going to do search now. I don't know. Let's just say I wanted to own BizBuddy LLC in Florida. Well, what you can see is there is BizBuild, and there's some names that come up here. But what I'm looking for to see if BizBuddy itself is taken. And Florida does do it in a way where it gives you more options than most states do, but you can pour through this and just see if there's an active LLC for the name BizBuddy, but I'm not seeing that currently. However, if you did something like, I don't know, Florida Gators, right? Here's where you can see a lot of things. So you're like, oh, I was going to open up the Florida Gators Brewing Company. Well, that's already taken, all right? So this is where you can just figure out if your name's available. So once you have a name and it is available within the state, next you want to get your LLC set up. You want to register that LLC name and then write your articles of organization and file those articles of organization with the state. This resource right here is helpful. This will take you to, again, another directory that explains the articles of organization, company name, primary business address, registered agent, duration, purpose, management, tax treatment, authorized signature. All of that is going to be on this page, and it'll explain it for you. But when you're looking at Florida, this is where you can file your articles of organization. But if you're not ready to go that in depth yet, but you're like, I do want to make sure that I obtain that name that I have in mind, what you can do is you can register your LLC name. This is usually a process that is a little bit quicker. And the way I can explain this best is think of it this way. Like you're like, oh, I want to start a website for my company, but I don't have the time or resources yet to do the website, but you're going to go buy the domain. That's what it is when you're registering the actual LLC name. But then you're going to write your articles of organization. And again, you can just do that on this page right here, and it gives you the instructions of everything that you're going to need. I'm going to kind of go over this really quickly because there are some elements in here that you may not be familiar with. Place of business address, mailing address, yep. Registered name and address. What a registered agent is somebody who is a third party who handles important documentation and communication for your business. So let's say you have that coffee shop and you were to be sued. The registered agent is going to make sure you get your service of process notice. So that's like a fancy way of saying you need to show up in court, and they're going to dot your I's and cross your T's. The other thing that's nice about them is they kind of create a little bit more distance between you and your business because all that important information is going to go to them and their address. Now, it's important that they have a physical address in Florida, not a P.O. box. So those are the two requirements. You have to have a registered agent and they have to have a physical address in the state of Florida, not a P.O. box. But it's really good to have a professional registered agent that when things that are important that are popping up in your business, they're helping you handle that and making sure that you're informed of what's happening with your business as you go through things. Here you can see like what is the purpose of the business, who are the managers or authorized representatives. This is really important too. If you have more than one owner, you're going to want to have them on there. The effective date, your signature, correspondence name and email, certificate of status, and a certified copy. Annual report notice. We're going to get into this in the next video, but very important that you do file your annual report with the state to remain active with the state of Florida. So once you file your articles of organization, again, this can be through the state website or going through an online legal tool or a business attorney. It really depends what makes sense for your situation. The next thing you're going to do is just sign that registered agent and those articles of organization, and then create and sign an LLC operating agreement. Florida doesn't require you to have one of these to get set up, but it's a good idea. What that operating agreement does is it lists who the managers of the LLC are, what their roles and responsibilities are, but also things such as like, if you had a partner, what does the exit strategy look like if a partner wants out of the business? I always say the operating agreement is kind of one of those situations where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And it's very true in this instance because let's say you start that coffee shop, it franchises out, it's a huge success and somebody wants to leave. Well, you might be looking at $10, $20, $30,000 of attorney fees to figure out what that person gets that's exiting the company. And if that was already spelled out in the operating agreement, you just save so much heartache and also expenses down the line when you have a solid operating agreement. Now, what I'll say is that the state website is not going to help you with that, but online legal tools and attorneys will help you set up that on your behalf. All right, after LLC formation, something you want to consider is an EIN. Let's take a look at this IRS link that's available here. An EIN is an employer identification number. It's like a unique number similar to a social security number, but for your business. Helps the IRS identify your business. You're going to need one of these if you ever have employees and you're paying them through payroll. It's really important that you just get this set up right away because it's going to also legitimize your business. So you're going for a business bank account. Well, you're going to give them your EIN, not your personal information. Also, some things to consider is obtaining business licenses and permits for your LLC. There's a good resource in here from the SBA, the Small Business Administration, that I've included. But what you need to know here is, again, the state website's not going to help you with this because they care about the state website levels, right? A good example is, let's say you're opening up a brewery. Well, you're going to be making beer and then distributing beer and serving beer at the location. These can require different licenses and permits, and sometimes they're on the federal level, the state level, and then the county and town level. So these are things you're going to want to research and make sure you have. Another example is like you're starting a construction company. Again, you're going to need licenses and permits for that. Not everybody needs these, but it's something that you should know about. What we're going to talk about in the next video is really deep diving on the state route, online tools, and attorneys. And we're going to be going over fees associated with setting up your LLC. So what does it look like not only today, but 5 years of ownership, down to the dollar of how much it's going to cost to own your LLC in Florida. We're going to talk about why state websites can become a pain down the line if your business starts doing well. And then also questions worth asking, like if you should talk to an attorney or a CPA before you go on with an online service or the state website. So again, make sure you click the link in the description below to get this checklist and follow along in the next video in our series as we deep dive on everything you need to know to get your LLC up and running right. I'll catch you in the next video.